Hello, Pop Consumer Society. It's time for lunch. Welcome back. And let's talk about it. The Detective Comics universe. We have important information to understand the move, to understand the plan of James Francis Gunn Jr. James Gunn is one of the executives, if not the executive, maybe the most active big studio executive on social media. The guy is always answering questions and always sharing information, sometimes vague, sometimes subtle, but always within the possibilities, within the planning and marketing and everything. So he always puts himself at the forefront of communication. A lot of people even complain that sometimes he makes himself seem more important than the movies or the content, but that's just his style, his social media presence. And they asked James Gunn now recently about the Detective Comics universe timeline because we don't have that. The movies are coming out, series are coming out, things are being produced, and there's no idea of how this is progressing, how these things fit together. And he said about his plans for this chronology, he said that the way they're releasing content right now, uh, the timeline is linear. It starts with Creature Commandos. What happens in Creature Commandos is exactly before what happens in Superman. From Superman, it goes to Peacemaker, from Peacemaker to Lanterns, and from Lanterns to Supergirl, and then it goes on from there. If there's any content that takes place before or after, it hasn't been released yet, isn't in planning, isn't filming, and doesn't have a date. We have other content coming up, for example, Paradise Lost, which is likely to be earlier in the timeline, but it hasn't entered the Detective Comics universe release schedule from Detective Comics Studios yet. And he gives an important piece of information here that Lanterns comes out before Supergirl. Supergirl has already been filmed. Supergirl has already released the actors. Amelia Alcock gave an interview recently this week saying that she has already recorded, already filmed her part, and that now it's in post production. If they need reshoots, of course, she might come back. But the movie is already delivered, the main filming is already done. Lanterns is still being produced because it's a series, it has several episodes, it's more content time, and Lanterns comes first. So we don't know the exact dates yet, but the Peacemaker series follows the events of Superman, with Rick Flag Sr., who appears in the Peacemaker trailer, being the same character from Superman but at a later time. Rick Flag survives the events of Superman, and Peacemaker will have its own series. After Peacemaker, the Green Lantern series is set to be released before any other movie. So there will be two series in a row before the next movie, which is Supergirl, which should have a connection with Superman, of course. I think mainly involving Crypto. Crypto should be the link between the two, since it's very likely that Supergirl will have Crypto too, because the original story, which is Woman of Tomorrow, which is the name of the movie, has Crypto. So I don't think it should be impossible to imagine that this character will be there selling a lot of plush toys too. And now comes something looking at this timeline, opening up this timeline here. I have an interesting observation to make because Marvel's Phase 1 had the famous Marvel formula where all the movies had more or less the same structure. They were basically producer Kevin Feige shaping a little formula for all the movies. Everything parental guidance 13, always with the hero, the origin story, then a negative version of the hero, an evil version in the third act, a confrontation, and a post-credits scene to connect everything to the team-up movie later on. So if you want to say that Detective Comics Studios is copying Marvel, is actually a completely different setup because Creature Commandos, Superman, Lanterns, Peacemaker are all very disconnected. If it was Superman, Wonder Woman, Batman, we would have an idea of where they're going. Oh, they're heading toward a Justice League. That's not what's happening here. It's like each one goes their own way. Each story is independent. Something that James Gunn has already said he wouldn't do here. Our concept of connectivity is more subtle than what Marvel did, where it was all the movies closely linked in a final direction at the end of a phase like Avengers. The Detective Comics universe, on the other hand, doesn't have this big finale. It doesn't have this major event connecting all the movies. The films come out, and sometimes they're conveniently in the same universe. But you don't necessarily have to watch everything. For example, Superman will ignore Creature Commandos, even though there are some characters that appear here. That's okay. Rick Flag Sr., the only character set to appear in all of them, right? We still don't have confirmation of his appearance in Supergirl or Lanterns. Up to the third Detective Comics show, he appears in all three: Creature Commandos, Superman, and Peacemaker. He's like Nick Fury, the connection for everything, but not in the same way as Fury, who was always gathering everyone together. And that's the first thing I noticed, this difference in how the Detective Comics universe is much more independent in its parts than Marvel was in Phase 1. Second thing, and I think this is even more important, Marvel Phase 1 was all more or less the same tone because it was the same universe, the same little story, everything parental guidance, 13, everything with the same kind of those dialogues, that tense situation that's broken by a joke. By something more fun. The Detective Comics universe content doesn't have that. Let's see. It starts with animation. Rated R, that real James Gunn style with those underground characters he loves. Then it goes to an iconic character from the publisher, Superman, who will have to be treated with immense respect, with a kind of Silver Age tone, with that crazy science and monsters and aliens and all that. Superman, total respect, icon, cornerstone. And then it goes to Peacemaker, it goes to the craziness, but the craziness is rated R, and Superman is parental guidance 13. So out of nowhere, it goes back to rated R, it goes back to swearing, blood, sex. Then you have Peacemaker with all the jokes and mockery, total craziness. And then out of nowhere, man, it jumps to a television series. A television series, Lanterns, and we still don't know what the age rating will be. It probably won't be low because the tone of the series seems to be like true detective investigation. It's not going to be a space adventure with special effects. It's going to be the guys on Earth investigating a crime. A space crime, of course, but a crime, an event, a puzzle. It's a mystery, better said. And it's going to be an home box office series, which means it has the home box office quality mark. It's the team that's involved. We recently had two Detective Comics series. The only home box office Detective Comics series, Penguin and Watchmen, both nominated for the Emmys. There won't be any garbage or bad content coming out. The series will have a very serious tone. And then it falls into Supergirl, which is space fantasy. Then it goes to another parental guidance 13 tone, Momoa, that joking around. In other words, there are 5 pieces that have completely different tones. They're songs with different rhythms. I'm not saying one is better or worse than the other, but they're different setups. Marvel didn't have that, but everything was in the same tone. Now Marvel is starting to flirt with Mather, who is Daredevil, and there was Wolverine. But before that, everything was standard. Now that's changing. But Detective Comics is already starting, not just disconnected in terms of story. It has a chronology, but it's not essential for you to follow. And also in tone, also very different in tone. That's very interesting for us to observe and wait to see if it's going to work, if it's going to come together, or if a bunch of random stuff will show up. Let's see. What do you think about all this? Leave your comments below. I'll return with more pop culture topics soon. Click the channel options on screen to stick around. More content is coming. See you later soon in a bit. Bye.